Black Ops 3 Zombies, truly one of the greats, lauded as one of the best zombie game experiences of all time, a game that even transcended its own franchise. It did this because everything in this game was just incredible. The maps, the gameplay, the story, the characters, the wonder weapons, almost everything was just top tier. But there is one section of this game that does in fact suck, and it's the regular weapons. There is maybe 4 or 5 standout weapons in this game, and one of those weapons is the KN-44, a gun that many people held up as one of the best guns in the game. It's the AN-94 regen, it's this, it's that. But you know what it actually is? Trash. Nothing but cold, stinky, wet trash. And I learned that the hard way as I tried to get to round 50 with it. We start on Black Ops 3's rendition of Kino der Toten. I was very tempted to do this on Der Eisendrache or Zetsubo until I realized I'd have to then fight the Panzer and the Threshers, and straight up, I just couldn't be arsed with that, so here we are. The first run starts off pretty good. We have our pistol in hand, and I get to work on grinding out some points, as it's quite a trek until we can get our hands on the KN. I also didn't bother getting a starting weapon this time around, as quite frankly, I hate them both and refuse to use them. So for the first 4 or so rounds, all I had was my pistol, which was out of ammo by the end of round 2, leaving me with just my knife. But thankfully it kept me alive long enough to get ourselves the KN-44 at the beginning of round 5. From here on, this is where the fun starts. At least that's where I'd hoped. Gun in hand, and I needed perks and Pack-a-Punch, and perks are up first as the KN can hold its own pretty early on. Jug was up first, with double tap and speed being brought a few rounds later. I was tempted once again to try and get stamina up over speed, but the Wonder Fizz can be an evil mistress, and I didn't fancy spending the next 30 minutes spinning bottles. With my perks equipped, Pack-a-Punch was up next, and it wasn't long before we had ourselves the Anointed Avenger, which in terms of Pack-a-Punch names, that one's up there. The name, however, is about the only good thing from this gun. Sure enough, it does a decent job at taking out zombies during these early teen rounds, but it's such an uninspiring gun to use. Not to mention, its actual damage stats aren't really that impressive either. With double tap and Pack-a-Punch, the gun deals a little over 2,000 damage to the head, which is okay, you know, it's not awful for a full auto gun, but when you factor in it has a fire rate of a slug, it becomes quite a problem. Another thing that was a problem was me. Yeah, this is one of the very few times I will admit to being at fault, but you know, when you're just playing zombies and you're a little bit too relaxed, yeah, that was me during this run, and it showed on round 14 as I ended up taking it down. With it being a low round, the recovery was simple enough and we got back to it. However, I was still playing like a pensioner, and it was only inevitable that things weren't going to last. 2 more rounds go by, and yes, I take another down. We recover and get back to it, and then on round 20, I take yet again another down. So I quit the game, chucked some Adderall, and ran it back. Early game, things started off pretty much the exact same as the previous run. We got the KN nice and early, grabbed our perks, and then got Pack-a-Punch on the go. Also, for anyone who may be wondering as to why no AATs, as I always get asked, for the most part, I like to run these challenges without them. For instance, weapons that are actually, you know, unusable, and also when or if I ever cross round 35 to 40, as most guns at that point fire bubbles. The rounds went by much smoother this time around, and it wasn't long before I was making my way through the 20s, but of course I like to make things difficult, and we took it down around 21. The aftermath of the down was a little sketchy. There was definitely a moment or two when I thought I was about to die, but we made it through and recovered our perks. Now, I was into the 20s and a few rounds past where this gun stops being a one-shot to the head, and this is where the downfall of this gun begins. Like, it's wild how trash this gun gets already. The fact the AK-74U, which is classed as an SMG in this game, outperforms an assault rifle and one of the supposed best, it's actually laughable. At this point, it was safe to assume that I'd be better off with a cabbage for a weapon, but we had to continue, so that's what I did. The KN only gets worse as you move through the 20s, which is obvious now I say it, but it's not like a gradual decline. It's like being pushed off of a cliff, but never reaching the bottom. That's how far this gun declines, and it wasn't long before I took my second down, this one coming on round 26. Unfortunately for me, my demise wasn't far off either. We revive, and I try to grab a death machine drop that of course disappears right as I get to it. I try to take out the remaining zombies, but it's no good. I get surrounded, and then it's game over. But I wasn't done just yet. I had a plan as to how we could pull off a decent round. That plan involves Black Ops 4 and the KN's big brother, the KN-57. I know someone is going to be crying over the fact that I'm using a gun that has different numbers in the name, but they're basically the same thing, so shut up. It's also been a minute since I've played Black Ops 4, so I headed off to a familiar territory, being 9. For this run, I also decided to activate our challenges for once, just in hopes that I'd get something juicy for a free perk. With the Strife's bayonet being as strong as it is, getting the points and making our way over to the KN Warbuy was a piece of cake. Everything that followed, not so much. With the KN acquired, it was now time to get Pack-a-Punch up and running, which meant we needed to go and fight a whole bunch of baddies. I started in the Ra Temple where I bought Quick Revive and then fought a Gladiator. Thankfully this time it was only one. Shortly later I made my way into the Dano Temple, I bought the perk, but this time it was the duo. Luckily for me, the KN in this game doesn't suck and it cleaned house with both of them. With our second sacrifice collected, I headed over to the Zeus Temple to get number 3, where we had to fight a bunch of tigers, which was actually perfect as I also had a challenge to defeat tigers. This meant this final sacrifice was just a single axe thrower, and he went down easily enough, and now Pack-a-Punch was ready. Pack-a-Punch may have been available, but I didn't run straight to it. Instead, I went a few more rounds, got myself the shield built, and then completed a couple more challenges. Round 11 is when I then got the KN upgraded, and things were looking pretty groovy. KN during these early rounds hits like a truck, and it made light work of the early teen rounds. I got the KN maxed out with Pack-a-Punch just in time for the first Blightfather, and it too didn't even get a chance to put up a fight. I like to sit here and say that the rest of the teen rounds were a doddle, which for the most part they were. However, at the beginning of round 16, I did take it down. Admittedly, it came from me just not paying attention, like, at all. A Gladiator spawns and just beats the crap out of me within seconds. That's a good job I got that extra life, huh? With that down on the board, I switched up my training strat and headed back down into the tunnels. I don't know why, but training in the arena, it isn't for me. The next few rounds were pretty straightforward. The KN was still steamrolling its way through the zombies, and my challenge was to kill gladiators, which was mainly just a waiting game. But at the beginning of round 21, I was finally done with that challenge, and my free perk was Time Slip. Yeah, not worth it if I'm being honest. With that disappointment out of the way, I kept grinding out the rounds, and the KN was surprisingly doing a very good job at keeping me alive. All throughout the 20s, it just puts everything down with very little effort. It didn't matter if it was a regular zombie or a boss. It was killing them all just as easy. However, the 30s began to tell a different story. With us quickly heading into health cap territory, the KN was starting to slow down, and things were definitely getting much tougher for the gun, and this became very apparent on round 32, where I take 2 downs. The first of which, I don't even know what downs me. I get stuck between a wall and a bunch of frozen zombies, and just as I'm about to throw down my Wraithfires, I go down. The second down comes about 10 seconds after I revive, as I'm surrounded by every single enemy and there was basically no escape, and well, I take another down. This time after reviving, I pop my special weapon and get the blasting, which thankfully gets me out of danger and I could go and get my perks back. With this being down to our last life, I knew I needed to make it count. Would I be getting to round 50? Possibly not. I mean, if this were tag, absolutely, but that map is boring as hell, so here we are. It wasn't too long after taking those down when I made it to round 35, which is health cap in Black Ops 4. From here on, the KN was kinda on its own. It wasn't struggling super hard, but it also wasn't finding it easy to take out the zombies, but we kept on going. It was also now that ammo was becoming an issue. Even though the Warbuy is on my training route, I was still running out of bullets mid-round almost every round. At this point, I was also using my Wraithfires and my special weapon a lot more, as they were just guaranteed big damage. By using everything, I made it through the rounds and we got closer and closer to 40. I was now starting to believe that maybe this can be done. Maybe the Black Ops 4 KN really is that guy. I then died around 39 out of nothing. I just used my special and saw a recharge drop, so I went for it, only for a zombie to block me, trapping me, and subsequently killing me. And just like that, run over. With that, the KN tops out around 39. Although in a map like Tag, you can definitely hit around 50, but I'm lazy, and that map bores me. Sorry, not sorry. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and let me know in the comments what other challenges you want to see from me, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.